Fantastic, folks. Thanks for all your patience, and thank you so much for taking a shorter break. I just wanted to, in the interest of time, try and catch up. As I had mentioned earlier, Dr. Ankita Singh is unable to join us this morning, both for the keynote as well as the panel discussions that she's part of later. Due to certain emergency situations, we wish her well, and I'd like to now discuss about our next keynote speaker, Mr. Rohan Lele. Rohan is the Associate Vice President, HR and Business Strategy. I mean, it's one of those very unique job titles that I have come across where HR and business go together in one person. Fantastic. Rohan, welcome of Zydex Industries. How are you doing, Rohan?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. You've got, honestly, a very, very good job title, because in the last 2-3 days and for many years before that, people have been talking about business and HR being aligned, business and HR having this kind of an issue with a tug of war. And
Yes.
Here we have somebody who's got both. So, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what it is that you'd like to talk about, Rohan.
Sure.
Excellent. Take it away. If you don't mind, please give a longer introduction to yourself, and then we can take it further.
Sure. So thank you for this lovely introduction, and thanks to the Impact Global for having me here. Well, without wasting much time on my introduction, well, it's there on LinkedIn and people can see that. I would like to straight away go on and talk about the subject today, which is future of work. Get set, go. Now, everything around us, has changed in the last 3 months. While we were sitting in the month of October, November 2019, and none of us in India ever thought that a COVID, which started in the month of December, somewhere in China, in Wuhan, is going to impact us so badly, and the country is going to see a 90 days of lockdown. While this has impacted the small and the medium scale organizations the most, it has also impacted some of the large companies into the entertainment, in the aviation, in the automobile space. And the future of work has really changed for all of us. And as we talk about the future of work, there's something that I want to quote, and this is by a gentleman called James Canton, who's one of the top futurists in the world today, among the top 5 future predictors. And he's written a book by the name of Future Smart Organizations, and I recommend everybody to read this book. And he says that we live in an era of extreme future.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Rohan, please?
The name of the book is Future Smart Organizations, and this has been written by a future predictor, a futurist. The name of the gentleman is James Canton, C-A-N-T-O-N. And he quotes that the future is going to be extreme. And when we say extreme, what he is trying to tell all of us is that what has changed in the last decade has not changed in the last 100 years. So much so, we talk about the telephone revolution that started in the Rajiv Gandhi era, but the real telecommunication revolution has happened in the last 10 years, from 2G to 3G, from 3G to 4G, and now we are talking about a 5G. And thanks to Reliance Industries and a whole host of platforms, that the way communication has changed across. Well, let me now switch to what has changed and what is going to further change. And we need to really understand the skills of future, because we are talking about the future of work. We all need to understand what are the skills of future that are going to be in huge demand.
Right.
The first is problem solving. The second is critical thinking. The third is innovation and creativity. The fourth is dealing with complexity and ambiguity. And the fifth is communication. Now, these are the top 5 skills of the future. And one thing, if you've noticed, which is common in all these 5 skills to deal with the extreme future that James has been talking about, is all these 5 skills talk about value addition, which means anything and everything which is transactional is going to get replaced by technology, whether it is AI or whether it is robotics. These will replace all kinds of transactional jobs. When we talk about skills such as problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, creativity, communication, and dealing with complexity, these are the skills which will need value addition. The technology won't be able to replace them. And even if it is able to, it will be able to replace them only partially to the tune of 20 to 30%, which means still the humans will be required for problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, and communication. So we all need to understand that whatever we are doing today, all the transactional part of our jobs at some point of time, if not today immediately, but at some point of time will be replaced with the help of technology. And hence, we must focus on doing jobs or getting into jobs which will constantly require value addition. So that's something that we must all remember. And if we are not into jobs which will continue to add value, we all are going to be replaced by technology at some point of time in our careers. Hence, what will this require? One thing which it will require is continuous learning as professionals. Those days are gone when our fathers started working in a particular job and they retired doing the same job, which means constant skill upgradation is going to be mandatory. It is going to be inevitable. We cannot continue sitting in our chairs and doing the same job, because everything that is transactional or over a period of time will become transactional is going to be replaced. Well, as we talk about the future skills, now let me focus on what is the future of HR going to be like. And all that HR will have to focus on is creating the right kind of employee experience. So when I talk about employee experience here as well, I'm talking about value addition in the lives, in the skills that are required by the employees working for the companies. And I quote Vineet Nair, the ex-chief executive officer of HCL Technologies. He always spoke about employee first. He was one of the biggest advocates of employees being given the prime importance in any organization. And he always talked about keeping the employee first and then keeping the customer second. Now, what it meant was that if you respect your people, if you take care of your people, if you nurture them, you hire the right talent and you're able to retain them, your customers are going to be taken care of automatically. And all that he was trying to tell is create the right kind of an employee experience for people. Today the entire world is talking about employee experience, and thankfully that's also the subject on which I am going to present my doctoral thesis. Now, if we really understand how the world has changed, how the paradigm has shifted, the world started talking about utility at first, where people were simply seen as resources to be utilized. From there, the world moved to talking about productivity. And the whole concept by F.W. Taylor, the time and motion study, where the world started emphasizing on getting the maximum output, optimized productivity from people. And then came an era of engagement, where the world was talking about highly engaged employees and highly disengaged employees and engagement surveys and so on and so forth. But today, the world is now talking about employee experience. The future of HR, where HR will really have to focus, is creating an employee experience and ensuring that everything that HR does is aligned to the expectations of the business. I think even today, not HR does not focus on aligning themselves to what exactly the business wants. Today, as I am into a dual portfolio handling human resources and business strategy, working closely with business leaders has helped me to understand and appreciate where they are coming from. And we as HR will have to create strategies, will have to roll out initiatives which the business really requires. And for that, we will have to work with our businesses very, very closely. And whether it is through learning initiatives, whether it is through an intervention of a technology, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is a host of initiatives to create a workplace of choice, all that HR will have to do is center all their ideas, all their initiatives, all their efforts around the business, which means we'll have to understand the entire value chain of how a business works. What does it take to run the business of future, right? Well, let's understand this, that the future today is changing far more rapidly than what it used to earlier, right? So earlier, if the business changed over a decade, today it's changing practically every few months. There are newer challenges that we are coping up with, and organizations which will be able to change at that pace are the organizations which will survive. There are umpteen number of examples, right from a Kodak to a BlackBerry and so on and so forth, which were not able to survive because they were not able to see the change or envision the change or adapt to the change that was coming in. And so the time is gone to sit in a comforting chair and believe that our business is something that is going to succeed or is going to continue growing. Because if you are a monopoly today, you are not going to remain a monopoly for a very, very long time to come. The biggest challenge, I think, for HR is going to be able to see the way the future landscape of business that is going to change. And for that, I think it is important that people in HR at some point in their careers do take up a business role or do get an opportunity to closely work with the business heads. Because if you can't see the change coming or the way the business landscape is going to change, you will not be able to add value to the way the business wants you to add value. And HR will continue to remain a very transactional function, and at some point of time will cease to exist. One change that you would have seen, and which is already come in and which is going to continue, is the role of HR is going to become more and more specialist. The HR head position over a period of time may cease to exist. This is a prediction that I've made on a lot of platforms. And I believe that today the role of a CHRO is more of an advisor than a typical HR head. If you talk about large multinational organizations, well, a HR head or a CHRO doesn't even have large teams reporting into them. So what is happening? The generalist HR is moving into a specialist HR. There was a time when in the medical profession, we all had generalist, medical practitioners. Today, the whole medical profession is becoming specialist. So is happening with HR. A few years ago, we never had a position of a vice president or a head of compensation and benefits. Today, we have that. A few years ago, we did not have a position of head of HR analytics. Today, we have that. So every role in HR is becoming more and more specialized. And today, a business is not going to go to the CHRO, but is going to go to the specialist of that, whether it is analytics, whether it is compensation, whether it is talent acquisition, whether it is an OD specialist, whether it is a learning specialist. The business heads are going to reach out to these specialists for seeking advice and for getting their problems solved. So time for HR to really think and move to specialist HR. And a lot of times I get asked by a lot of young HR folks, what should we pursue? And I always tell them that, look, whatever is your passion, be a specialist in that. Or if you want to be a generalist, be the best generalist that you can. Because as a CHRO or as a HR head, your job is going to be of an advisor, of a coach, and a mentor to the specialists who are working as a part of your team. So that's where the whole landscape is going to change. Right? So to sum up my discussion, what are the skills that I mentioned about the future? I think problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, dealing with complexity, and communication and data analytics. What does it tell us? Everything is going to be centered around value addition. And hence, it's time that organizations and HR focuses on these future skills, hires people with these skills, and nurtures the current talent to hone up these 5 skills that I spoke about. And I was going through a recent article, very interesting. What they said is reasoning and decision making in organizations is going to remain with people. 70 to 80% of reasoning and decision making will be done by humans, and only 20% to 30% is going to be done by machines. And hence, time that we focus on value addition, we develop our people to focus on value addition, and then allow technology to take over, embrace technology, to survive and to keep growing and to be a sustainable enterprise. Thank you once again, Impact Global, for this opportunity. Happy to share my views. I hope I am exactly on time.
Absolutely, you're spot on, Rohan. Fantastic insights, to be honest, and some of them quite a bit scary to some of the current practicing CHROs and HR professionals, which I completely welcome from you. I mean, I personally couldn't agree with you more when you start talking about the role of HR becoming specialist. The role of HR is no longer, I mean, we had Dr. Rao tell us that, humans are not resources, and it should be, he calls it the human possibilities.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm going to talk to and talk to Dr. Rao and try and see if we can expand on that and spread the word for the HR profession. But having said that, Rohan, it's extremely interesting, to be honest with you. I can't stress this point enough when you sort of try and say, like, HR is business. HR is in the boardroom. HR should be moving forward in terms of trying to look at things from a business perspective. And this is something you say, you share, that you yourself have learned, and you're able to see it from a business person's perspective, because ultimately that's all what we try and achieve or get to as a target. Having said that, there are some questions that I would kindly request you, Rohan, after the interest of time, after the panel is over, after the time is over, if you can try and log on to the app and answer these questions, would be greatly appreciated. But I do have one question before you go, if you don't mind.
Sure, sir.
This is actually my question also. I mean, you started talking a lot about, the soft skills, I get right at the beginning of your speech, and I guess those soft skills apply to all employees irrespective of function going forward, which I completely agree with you. But specifically to HR, and having said, to quote you, that the role of HR will cease to exist in the near future. Okay, if I'm an aspiring HR professional, or if I'm just in a mid-junior position, what do you think, what kind of training, what kind of skill do you think I should acquire for the HR professional per se to be able to be future ready, if you will? And this question is asked by Novi Luz Palomata. So
Sure.
you can answer this question.
I think a great question, and I get this asked quite often. I think today the crossroad at which HR is, I believe that fundamentally young professionals need to make a choice. You know, do they want to, it's like, you know, do you want to be a MD general physician, or do you want to be an MD ENT or an MD, you know, XYZ? It's about, you need to make a choice whether you want to be a specialist or you want to be a generalist. Now, a choice that I also made in my career was to get exposed to every different aspect of HR. And fortunately, except for being in a specialist comp and ben role, I have literally worked into every aspect of HR. Now, if you are extremely passionate about, let's say, learning and development in OD, and that's where your interest lies, nothing wrong in being a specialist and trying to nurture and hone your skills to be the best in that business. Remember, when you're a specialist, you know, the business is going to look up to you for every single problem that they have from a learning perspective. You know, so it's a choice that you will have to make as a young HR professional, and you can have a great career being a specialist, but when you're a specialist, you need to be the best. You need to have answers for anything and everything that a business will ask as a, you know, as a learning champion or as an OD champion. With a generalist, you will have to have a great sense of business per se. You will have to be a visionary, somebody who can look into how the business is going to shape up in the next 3 to 5 years, so as to be able to coach and mentor business heads. So that's the difference that is there.
Okay. Okay, great. I mean, thank you very much, Rohan, for being part of the HRM Summit India 2020. I personally, honestly enjoyed a lot of what you said, not just because I have very similar belief to what you talked about, but I enjoyed it because you had the capacity to deliver it with such crispness and such hard-hitting words that it's only right for most of the HR professionals to wake up to what you have said and start taking action today. And that's exactly what we try and achieve in these conferences, to try and provide actionable steps, not just theory of what's happening somewhere else. I appreciate you being part of our panel, a panel of speakers, and thank you for your keynote, and thank you for your commitment where you had a little bit of a technical issue with your other connected device, and you were able to quickly morph into a telephone and get online, and I truly appreciate that. I'm sure I'm going to be definitely in touch with you. And my son's name is Rohan as well, so it's not easy to get you. So thank you so very much for being part, and appreciate all the contribution you've done to us.
Thank you, sir, and thanks to Impact Global for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Congratulations, and all the best for your doctoral thesis.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.